sending you a warm autumn welcome to the Breaking Script podcast with Lala and Nini.
This is where we explore the glimmer-filled world of Hallmark movies and the occasional Asian drama.
Our cinematic self-care sessions bring us even more joy this fall because we get to do this together with you. So let's get this therapeutic adventure started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Breaking Script podcast with Lala and Nini. I'm Lala.
And I'm Nini.
And I don't know about you, Nini, but it is a glorious fall day. Like, it is cold here.
That sounds amazing. We're not quite there yet. We're right behind you. But I agree. I agree that I'm starting to get the fall feels. Like, is it feeling like fall magical there now?
I mean, yes, but I feel like I'm always ready for fall because low-key, I just want Christmas to come. But as soon as September hits, it feels like Thanksgiving is around the corner because here in Canada, like October 12th is usually when we have Thanksgiving. Much earlier than you.
Weird. Yeah, that feels so weird to me.
I think it's weird celebrating Thanksgiving so close to Christmas.
It's true. I feel like you guys have a lot more shopping time.
Yeah, and I feel like after Thanksgiving, a lot of people will put up, not a lot, but it is more, I don't know, it's more welcome to put up your tree because there's, aside from Halloween, we do have Remembrance Day, and then Christmas. So like,
wait, back up for us Americans here from the United States of America. What is Remembrance Day?
Remembrance Day is essentially like our Veterans Day.
Got it. Okay.
Yes.
And that's after Thanksgiving?
That is after Thanksgiving. That is November 11th. So typically, like, the rule is you're not supposed to put your Christmas tree up until after Veterans Day, but that's still November 11th. Still, that's before your Thanksgiving.
Yeah, no kidding. That is so weird. Well, nevertheless, fall is so magical. I love that Canada celebrates it even sooner. That's great. But especially for a girl from LA, because when you first experience the 4 seasons, like, I don't know if you realize this, but why fall is so magical for me is because I grew up without seasons.
Right.
And so your first time experiencing the 4 seasons where like winter's super gray and it's like feels like it lasts forever and there's snow on the ground, it's funny because in the Midwest it's not as long as Canada, but the first day the sun comes out in the spring, I was so shocked at how happy people were and so like extra kind and extra polite, only to find out for us, because I was in the Midwest, and the first time I experienced the 4 seasons as an adult living there, I was in Kentucky. I was in Louisville, Kentucky. And I remember I was so excited for spring, but then you have allergies and you have this horrid pollen. And then it leads to summer where it's so humid, you need gills to breathe. And you don't have any reprieve from the heat at night. Like, it's hot in the desert, but the dry heat, you actually it cools down like every single night. So after months of what feels like no reprieve, when fall finally arrives, it is the most wondrous season ever, which leads me to today's movie, Roadhouse Romance. The setting is in Lockhart, Tennessee. And again, I just love seeing LA characters adjust to Southern charm and country music. Lala, why don't you introduce the main characters?
Okay, so in Roadhouse Romance, you are going to meet the 2 main characters. We have Callie, who is played by the wonderful country singer Lauren Alaina, and we have Luke, played by none other than the infamous Hallmark favorite, Tyler Hynes.
Woohoo! Tyler Hynes. 2 in a row for us, the way we're recording. I don't know how we're launching, but love it. Okay, so you guys get ready. I'm not short-winded here. This lovely autumn Southern boy meets girl story starts out on a bus ride with Lieutenant Callie Jackson in her OCPs. That's the camo Army combat uniform. She looks dreamily and happily out a window, driving down a road lined with beautifully golden and auburn colored trees. So we can guess she's headed home. Home is a small town called Lockhart, Tennessee. The bus pulls in front of a nondescript building with a large sign that indicates it's Tucker's Roadhouse. You see fall decor signs all over that say things like "A day in the country is better than a month in town," and flyers posted for Tucker's Fall Festival. We find out that Callie's arrival is a week early to surprise her mom Eva and her Aunt Willa. In the midst of their welcome home banter and catch-up news, the most important plot point is introduced because this entire movie and love story surrounds the sauce. Mom and Aunt Willa hesitatingly inform Callie that they have run out of Grandpa's barbecue sauce and they can't find a written recipe. What about Tucker's Fall Music Festival? You cannot serve store-bought sauce at the festival. This is a crisis. Callie is appalled, but she sees a familiar figure outside the window that makes her quickly forget the barbecue sauce fiasco. Her eyes give away that this is clearly a love interest, and she doesn't even realize he's talking to another girl when she boldly comes up from behind him, covers his eyes, and does the whole "guess who" bit. He turns around, she goes in for the kiss, he bypasses and gives her the awkward hug, and that's when, while over his shoulder, she finally sees the other girl. He confesses, "I should have told you about Lynn." A sad and embarrassed Callie takes a deep breath, and Mom comes out to hand her keys to the truck so she can drive home and cry. Only she doesn't quite make it home because she's crying in this truck when a guy in a classic car comes flying in and they crash. Cut to the scene before this crash with two guys in a classic car. We meet Dan and Luke. Luke is driving while Dan is navigating and trying to convince Luke that they need to stop at Tucker's Roadhouse, the best barbecue east of the river. Luke refuses to make any stops. They need to get to Nashville ASAP. This car is a surprise birthday gift for Luke's girlfriend, Jillian, and the guy's clearly too cool and busy for a country stop or country music. That's when we learn that Dan is Luke's agent and also his best friend, who's arguing with Luke that they need to take breaks so he doesn't burn out. And also, Dan argues, when are we going to be in Tennessee again? Because it is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Sorry, I cannot say that without laughing. Luke gives in and dramatically turns into Tucker's Roadhouse parking lot where he crashes into the back of Callie's truck. Cut back to the scene of the accident where Dan is profusely apologizing to Callie, Eva, and Aunt Willa. He tells them he's Luke's agent. Luke is an award-winning television director, so he promises to pay for Callie's damages and thanks her for her military service. In the auto shop, Sully says that the part needs to be picked up from Franklin, Tennessee. So it could be days, maybe weeks. Luke and Dan are stuck in Lockhart. Willa ends up showing Dan and Luke to a room upstairs at Tucker's Roadhouse where they can stay for the night. Luke is unimpressed and concerned the room isn't soundproof because of the loud country music blaring downstairs. End scene. The next day, Aunt Willa asks Callie to pick up some donations in town for the auction for the Fall Festival. When Luke meanders to the bar and asks for something for a headache, Luke is not a country music fan and suggests that it is a contributing factor to his headache. Callie makes sure Luke knows that country music is special because it allows people to share their truth and their stories. In the midst of this conversation, Luke finds out that Grandpa Tucker passed while Callie was deployed. Luke apologizes for the accident, and Callie admits that she was being a crybaby. They exchange olive branches, and Luke asks if Callie can give him a ride to town. Luke is clearly struggling in the trunk with a honky-tonk country music playing in the truck. She tells him it's not the music giving him a headache, it's his posture. We learn that Callie is a DPT, a doctor of physical therapy. Jillian calls while Luke is still in Callie's truck, and their conversation reveals that Jillian sent Luke a feature film script called Island Girl for Jillian to star in and Luke to direct for his first feature film. Remember, he's an award-winning TV director. He hasn't made it to the silver screen yet. In town, Luke finds Callie collecting donations and joins her, so Luke suggests a cultural exchange program where he makes Callie a list of sci-fi movies to watch, and Callie only agrees to watch if he listens to a playlist of country music songs she gives him. That evening is Callie's homecoming celebration where Callie is asked to sing at her own celebration. Luke's face reveals that he is completely enamored by her singing and her voice and everything about her. Callie tries to teach Luke the cowboy cha-cha when they're interrupted by a phone call. It's Jill, whining, "Why aren't you in Nashville yet?" She signed on to do Island Girl already. It would be 3 months together in Hawaii. But the script is so rough, Luke just can't agree to it like that. Jill is frustrated because she went to bat for Luke on this one to be his opportunity to break into feature films. That night, Luke is having trouble sleeping and goes downstairs to find Callie in the kitchen at 2 a.m. trying to recreate her grandpa's barbecue sauce. She's been trying for hours and is tired and frustrated, and so frustrated and lost to the point where the pan catches on fire, she burns her hand, which is a setup to the Adorbs typical romantic "let me bandage your hand for you" scene. He tells her being in this small town and wrapping her hand is interesting in a good way, while they exchange lingering glances, more like gazes before saying goodnight. Cut to a scene the next day where Luke convinces Joe, Callie's ex, who's on a break from his current girlfriend Lynn, to ask Callie out again. Joe immediately goes over to Callie, who is across the street, to ask her if she's interested in trying to be together again, just a dinner to catch up. Callie says she needs to think about it. Luke watches this entire transaction between Joe and Callie, and when Joe leaves, Luke walks over to Callie to offer a hand as she's putting flyers on windows about the fall festival. Luke says he can tell Callie and Joe are still in love. It's a classic Hollywood story of childhood sweethearts having a falling out and finding each other again. He teases Callie that she probably has a shoebox under her bed of everything Joe ever gave her. This is an important detail to remember. Callie teases Luke back and tells him he should stick with sci-fi. Romantic comedy isn't his thing, which gives him a great opportunity to tell her he actually might be directing a romantic comedy feature film called Island Girl, which he considers a good opportunity but not a good script, and asks if she would read the script. Since she's a country singer, she's an expert in a good story, right? Grandpa says, country music is 3 chords and the truth. Island Girl is a clunker, according to Callie, and she makes lots of notes. Luke asks if Callie could go over the script notes with him over dinner, and she says she can't because she took his advice and said yes to dinner with Joe. The perfect Hollywood ending, high school sweethearts reuniting. His date with Joe takes place at the Rusty Latch, where it's open mic night. Callie sings Lauren Alaina's original song and ends with the cringiest date conversation where they realize they're no longer a fit for each other. She admits that she has a shoebox under her bed of things Joe gave her, but she doesn't know if it's ballast or baggage. In a brief scene, we see Dan and Aunt Willis starting a thing. Cut to Callie pulling out a shoebox from under her bed in the moment we've all been waiting for. She calls her mom to show her she found Grandpa's written barbecue sauce recipe from the shoebox under her bed because Grandpa probably knew she would eventually find it there. The next day, Callie finds out Will is concerned ticket sales for the fall festival are so low, Eva says they might need to cancel. Meanwhile, Callie is happily cooking away in the kitchen when she comes to find Luke at the bar, and she says to him, "Luke, you'll never believe what happened last night." And Luke replies, "When's the wedding?" And she says, "No, I found my grandpa's recipe in the shoebox under my bed. If you never teased me, I never would have found it." Luke saved the fall festival. He is her hero. Dan and Willa are having a conversation about planning on starting a franchise when a Suburban with a sticker that says Fall Harvest drives by. While Luke and Callie are having the cutest, most successful barbecue sauce recipe tasting together in the kitchen, Callie lets Luke know that she let go of Joe because she realized he was baggage holding her back. They're interrupted by a could-be-cute, kinda, but shrill voice that's obviously Jillian, who came to Lockhart to surprise Luke. She makes sure Callie knows Luke's taken, like they're practically engaged. Luke and Jill go on a beautiful green screen test drive joyride. Jill says the car is a great toy for driving around Malibu, but not a road trip. The disagreement over the Island Girl project continues. Luke lets Jill return to Nashville without him first. Dan and Luke are back in Cali, poolside eating and reminiscing because they're using the Tucker's barbecue sauce. They're talking about the fall festival and lack of ticket sales. Luke wants to help, but doesn't know how because Willa won't let them just buy tickets. They want people there. Back in Lockhart, they almost cancel artists and performers and start taking down decoration when Willa checks again, and ticket sales are what? Sold out. Luke and Jill have a heated negotiation on what to keep in the Island Girl script, and Jill says, "Just do it for her career, Luke. It's a favor to her. He has to sign a deal, no more notes on the script, and she'll owe Luke a favor, and he can call it in for whatever he wants." The favor he asked for was to save the Tucker's Fall Festival. Jill posts about it on her social media and saves the day. Callie presses Dan to ask why Luke would do that for people he just met, and Dan replies, "Sometimes a man finds his true home among strangers, and those strangers become family." Apparently, Callie is true home to Luke now. It's finally the night of the Fall Festival, a night that looks much like any other night at Tucker's, but with more bands. Callie sings Grandpa's song, the one he wrote for Grandma and sang every year at the Fall Festival, and of course, who walks in just before she starts singing? It's Luke Ellis. Callie doesn't see him or know he's there, but he's enamored. They end this beautiful small-town fall boy meets girl love story with a romantic scene on the porch of Tucker's Roadhouse, where Luke lets Callie know he caught her entire song and he broke his deal with Jill and the movie, which is why his phone is blowing up with upset peoples. Callie tells him that this is the part where the boy kisses the girl. Cue the iconic Hallmark ending kiss, and they finish off with a cowboy cha-cha. Final end scene. Cue the credits.
Bravo. Amazing. I feel like I watched the movie. Okay, we're going to go through our ratings right now. We rate everything out of 10 bobas. So our ratings go, we're going to rate a writing, we're going to rate characters, we're going to rate how funny it was, and we're going to give it an overall rating. So, Nini, what did you give the writing for this Roadhouse romance?
Okay, you have to understand, I have to give a disclaimer. I love Tyler Hynes. I loved Lauren Alaina because I don't love country songs. I don't love country music. I really bonded with
Mm.
Luke Ellis in this. But I loved her songs. Fun fact, those were actually Lauren Alaina's original songs. And she actually
Oh,
had to change some of the script or some of the words in order to fit the movie. So I loved the
gotcha.
banter. I loved the clever Southern quotes. I loved how they made her songs work in the movie. So I gave it an 8.
Nice. I think you know what I'm gonna say. Okay, I gave it a 6. Okay, we'll get into why. Okay, we'll get into why, but I just felt like the writing was not it for me. But I loved the songs. Like, I will talk about that. I love the songs. So I thought that they did a 6, a good job. That's a pretty, like, you know,
I got I gotcha.
yeah, okay. Character rating. What did you?
So again, this is one of like my favorite Hallmark movies, but again, I think it's because I have personal connection to the
Connection?
story. They talk about Malibu. You know, the characters are from Malibu, or I don't know if they're from Malibu, but they drive around Malibu, which I grew up driving around Malibu when I turned 16, like introduced to the Southern. So there wasn't much development, but I love the characters. So I gave them an 8.
Okay. Okay, I gave them a 7.5. I
Wow,
really
it's higher than the
I
writing?
well, we can talk about the writing, but I really felt, well, I'll just tell you, I really felt that Luke and Callie, Tyler and Lauren Elena, really carried this whole movie.
100%. Yes.
So if it wasn't for them and what I think was like real chemistry, um, like, they had good chemistry. Uh,
Totally.
I don't know if it would be much of a movie. So I gave it a 7.5 because I really think they carried the weight of
Yeah,
this.
I agree 100%. I mean, if we're going to talk about that, I'm going to give them a 10 because they 100%
Yeah,
a script that didn't have much of a plot. I mean, what was the plot? There was a broken car. They were planning an event. Any Hallmark movie about planning an event, I'm like, there is no plot. Why are we doing another movie about prepping for an event? And a lost barbecue sauce recipe. That was pretty much the plot. There was no plot.
exactly.
But yeah.
Okay. How much did you laugh? Like, how funny out of 10 did you find this movie?
So I give it a higher, I think, just because Tyler Hynes and
Mm,
also all the quotes and the way that Lauren Elena delivered them, I gave it an 8, which is probably higher than I would rate like the average Hallmark
yeah.
movie. Because it's not like Paul Campbell, Kimberly Sested level, you know.
Okay. Yeah. I gave it a 6. So
Okay.
I think it was a solid 6. I did laugh. You guys have to remember I'm new. I'm but I think it was a solid 6. Okay. Overall,
I, yes.
what what are you thinking?
I had a
I know you
sliding scale.
love this movie.
It's because I love this movie so much. I think it felt familiar. I think it was therapy for me because I related on so many levels. So I gave
Yeah.
it a sliding scale of 8 to 10 because you guys, this is literally a movie that I'll just put in the background and watch over and over again, which is like unheard of for me. People who know me are like, you watch a Hallmark movie over and over. And what is wrong with you? Okay, go ahead. What did you
we
give?
all we all have that movie that we watch over and over again. This was like a 6. I pretty much averages out my score. I'm giving it a 6 because I did think the plot was just really weak. I liked the characters a lot. Like, again, I thought Tyler and, well, so Callie and Luke, they really carried the movie. Loved the chemistry. I think the set was a little fake of the fall. I live I live in a very fall-esque area, so I guess maybe I'm a little bit harsh. There
No.
was also that scene where they're back in California and instead of having palm trees, they had the palm trees in like that, like a base, like just in the
Yes.
backyard.
Yes.
I,
Do
I
better,
was
Hallmark.
trying to get past it. I really was. I was trying my hardest, but so anyways, but there are definitely things that I loved.
Okay, well,
Definitely.
let's get to it.
Yeah.
Let's get to it then. Here's our breakdown. We have 4 segments. Our first segment is What's Love Got to Do? Got to do with it, where we break down glimmers, what we love, breaking down, really, we're breaking down romantic and family relationships, which this one, I feel like, Lala, you got like the more run-of-the-mill Hallmark movie compared to now you see how complex Three Wise Men and a Baby really was in
Right.
their right.
For sure.
Because this is more that follows that psychological breakdown where it's like you're happy is not too happy, you're sad it's not too sad, like your plot's not too detailed. It's like it's just happy and we can just be there. So what did you think?
I'll start with something that I loved. I loved the song Run. Her opening with that song, I just was like, oh, I like this song. All of her songs were really good. I really love that first song. She has an incredible voice. So I loved that about this movie.
Yes, 100%. I love that. I actually had a quote from Run in my plot summary, but it got too long. I was trying to cut like 1,000 words out. And so I love that it was about like how life just keeps going and we don't know how to slow down. It gave me all the feels. So loved it. But I mean, for me, there wasn't really like there were so many like it wasn't like glaring like, oh my gosh.
Right.
Because yeah, in the same way, like the fall feels were super fake and it was hard to get into it. But the Jill and Luke versus Callie and Luke versus Callie and Joe, like, okay, I can pull some stuff out of there. Like Jill and Luke are obviously like your typical Hollywood relationship that's based on appearances and keeping up with the Joneses, and there's not really like a whole lot of substance there. Like it's based on hustle.
Right.
Whereas Callie and Joe is like it's familiar and they're wanting what's familiar but realizing it's not familiar.
Right.
And then I feel like I have more to say about Callie and Luke in the next segment, but I thought it was cute. I thought it was innocent. I thought it was cute. I thought it was great that it was the girl getting the guy to slow down, because I feel like in a lot of the Hallmark movies, it's the guy getting the girl to slow down. So I loved that about it. And I loved that Dan and Luke, they're have a working relationships, but they're also have some kind of romance going on.
Definitely.
And Luke as an agent, or not Luke as an agent, sorry, Dan as an agent was trying to get Luke to slow down and not burn out. Like I'm all about burnout recovery and preventing burnout. So that's all I got.
I love that. I have to say, I have a really obscure thing that I loved about this movie. And I don't even know, like, if anyone is gonna get this, but I have to say, I'm a huge fan of Sarah Edmondson as a person. And do you know who Sarah Edmondson is? It is Aunt Willa. And I don't know if you know, but if anyone has followed the Nexium cult that a few years ago completely unraveled, she was the whistleblower. She was the original whistleblower. Yes. So when I saw her, I was like, what? She totally has like a brand on her from that cult. And here she is being like one of the, supporting characters. Yes. So I knew she was Canadian and I knew she had some acting. I'm a huge fan of her as a person. This is like my first time seeing her. I think I saw her like one time in an episode briefly of When Calls the Heart. So this was the first time I've seen her have it was a pretty major role. She was Aunt Willa. I thought she did great, but I just love her for like who she is and being strong and coming forward with everything. That's a total side story, but if you don't know much about that, it's a crazy cult. She exposed it. There's lots of documentaries on it. It's called Nexium. Anyways, I just had to throw that in there.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you reminded me of that. because now I love this movie so much more. Those documentaries
Um,
in my life. So I love it.
okay.
But I also love, okay, so this is what I love the most. I saved the best for last.
Okay.
I really loved Lauren Elena's character, Callie. I loved all the quotes in this movie, which we will get
Mm.
to. I just wanted to say this one here. My first favorite of Grandpa Tucker's quotes, where the conversation goes like this. This is where Callie's telling Luke that Grandpa used to always say, trouble is transportation. A bad thing can take you to a good place. And Luke says, speaking of which, do you think your truck can take me to town? And she goes, are you calling my truck a bad thing? And he says, no, ma'am, I'm calling your town a good place. And she's like, can I say, you coming? And he's like, oh, like right now? And she's like, yeah, you want to ride? It's now. Like, as Southern girl, love it. And fun fact, Tyler Hynes' first Hallmark movie was with LeAnn Rimes. It's called It's Christmas Eve, because her name is Eve. It's like It's Christmas, comma
Oh,
Eve.
Eve.
If you
Yeah.
listen to the Hallmark podcast, gosh, I like give them so much free publicity. They do that bit like every time someone says it's Christmas Eve, you have Bran singing It's Christmas Eve. Um, because they it's LeAnn Rimes, I guess, like handpicked Tyler Hynes. Like he never auditioned. He was on some short list, and then
Wow.
his career took off from there. But what's really funny is through these podcasts, I've learned that Tyler Hynes' greatest one of his greatest fears is being serenaded and him having to make eye contact while being serenaded. And that's how his Hallmark career started. And then he
That's
had to do that again
hilarious.
with Lauren Alaina. And then he did it with Kelly Pickler, which those are really interesting movies. Anyways, I love it. I love it. I love it.
Oh
Anything
my
else
gosh.
we on?
So the only thing, so if we're like still looking at, the leading romantic relationships, family relationships, I just, one thing that, and maybe this is more like this is for a later segment, but I was kind of thrown off by the fact that Joe reacted to Callie like he didn't know she was coming home. He's had a new girlfriend and she was away for 2 years and they clearly didn't define it. But wouldn't you think they talked in the 2 years that they were away?
There's so many plot holes that we could get with Oi with the Poodles already. Because there's
Yeah,
so much, like they're high school sweethearts, but he's a doctor and she's a PT, which is also a doctor. So like clearly, like when did they break up? How long were they together? How old are they now? Like there's so much that's like confused.
you're right.
But I
The
still
only other thing I think I had about just like the relationships in general was I did think that when Callie was showing Luke how to do the cowboy two-step, is that what it is?
cowboy cha-cha, it's
Sorry,
basically yeah.
cowboy cha-cha. They were a little bit close for someone who is dating someone else.
Right. I mean their chemistry was like
Was real.
what?
It
It
was
was so
real,
good.
but I just was like, guys, you're in a
Not appropriate.
relation,
Hallmark.
right? You're not appropriate.
It's so true.
He has a girlfriend. Okay, next segment.
The next segment is called Aya, Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls. And we've introduced before that this segment might include the Oma, I don't want no scrubs. I don't think I said that the first time, but it's unhealthy behaviors, coping mechanisms. But the Oma, I don't want no scrubs is if we have to pull the Nardar out. In this movie, I didn't have to pull the Nardar out. I love the movie. It makes me so happy. I didn't care much to look. That's what makes it a good Hallmark movie, is because you're not triggered. I would say the only unhealthy behavior actually is a personal trigger for me, but I get it because I'm a parent. So I'm not like, I don't want to offend any parents here. But it really bothers me when parents don't tell their children about things about their own health or crisis because they don't want to burden their children.
Mm,
And it's when they're like Callie's involved, she's home, and it's clear she kind of has a role at Tucker's Roadhouse, but she doesn't realize how much financial crisis they're really in.
right.
That was a trigger for me. And
Mm.
you guys, if I deep dove, I'm sure I could pull all kinds of things out. But it just makes me so happy. I just don't want to. So go ahead. What did you have for this one?
To be honest, other than, I mean, I think it was Joe, like who really to me
Yeah.
was probably the most, if we're even going to call him unhealthy, like there are unhealthy patterns of behavior. Like he was clearly with someone and then Callie came home and all of a sudden he wasn't
Totally.
really with somebody and he wants to see where that goes, but yet he didn't stay in touch with Callie. Other than that, it was really wholesome and innocent, and I appreciated that. I also appreciated that Callie was not how I feel like maybe Hallmark typically portrays women. And I thought she was
Yeah.
very relaxed. She did not seem desperate for Luke's attention. She did not seem tropey at all. I mean,
Totally.
the only person I think that was a little bit stereotypical was Jillian, but I think sometimes you got to throw that character in there to really, I don't know, balance it off because obviously Luke needs to be with somebody he's going to break up with. If he was with a wonderful woman, we would all be sad and him and Callie would not be together. So I
Exactly.
actually thought it was really wholesome. I agree with you. I don't think they should have kept Callie in the dark, especially like she's a full grown woman who, she was in the army for 2 years. I'm assuming she saw some stuff. She can handle financial
Exactly.
crisis. Um, yeah, that was my take.
Oh, I forgot to say that I love that. I don't think I've seen any other Hallmark movie where the woman is in the military. They're always the
Mm.
men that's in the military. So I really love that. I'm sure there is. I probably am just not thinking of it, but I loved how they portrayed her too.
I just wish we got a little more military backstory.
Yes, I agree. It's like, so you're a PT in the military. Tell me about that. Okay. Well, I go away with the poodles already. These are plot holes, continuity issues, the wait what we didn't like. You guys, there's so many. I had to stop or I would hate the movie. I mean, like, don't mind the veggie straws being served instead of actual food. I don't know if you caught that, but the Deck the
No.
Hallmark podcast caught that. I mean, I caught that immediately. Like the first time I watched it, I was like, what is this? And I do have to confess, when I first watched this movie, before I knew about the Hallmark world, I was like, this is a weird movie. And then it's like total fan service. I love it now. Um, but like the SUV that has the fall harvest sticker
Yeah.
that comes into town with Jillian, did you catch that? Where she comes into town in this black SUV. Why does it have a fall harvest sticker? Like, don't mind those. Let's talk about this fall festival, shall we? Like, what about it was a fall festival?
I know.
Is
It's
it a music festival? Like, where are the fall activities? Like the pumpkin carving or cornhole or like hay rides? Like, where's the festival?
it's more like a dinner.
Yeah,
It felt
it's
like a
dinner
fall
stuff.
dinner.
Yeah, yeah. It's a I like okay, maybe it's a music festival. Then okay, maybe, but still, it's fall. Like, where are all the fall things that you expect? So
Yes. Okay. For me, the car accident, I don't know if anyone has ever been in a car accident, but nobody reacts that way. Like, oh, it's like everyone was so laid back. They wanted to assume fault right away. It's I was in Kansas City visiting Nini and I had someone hit my car and didn't he totally hit my car, didn't want to claim fault. Pretty much it was actually the accident I was in was less intense than that parking lot accident and yet it did not go that smoothly. So I was like, okay, the writers, no, that's not how
yeah,
accidents goes. Um
yeah.
Also, on the topic of cars, the scene where Luke and Jillian are driving the car after, Luke just gave her the car for her gift, it was a green screen. Like,
It always is.
Hallmark.
You have to get over
No. No.
the car scenes are usually green screen, and it's like, oh,
Why?
so hard to watch. But what I can't forgive them is that fall scene because Hallmark has some truly like idyllic scenery. like when they go shoot on location at certain places. Like I'll watch the Hallmark movies um to like see the scenery. I did this brain
Oh,
rewire
I
training
know
where
what
like
you're
do
talking
this like
about.
for visualization, like it's but that random bench they pulled off on where she's like, if you want to learn about country music, you got to see the ridge. And they pull off on a random, like it's, they don't even pull off a road. It's like the side of the road. They find a random bench that looks over this ridge where it's like, there's fake leaves and fake trees and a green screen scene where I'm like, it's not
I
okay. I still
I
love the movie,
know.
but
I
it's unforgivable.
It's also why they can keep it within budget.
Yes, yes. Remember, it's $2 million, people. They got to keep it under $2 million. But like, also, is Tucker's Roadhouse basically a modern day saloon?
Oh,
How?
yes.
Why is there a room where guests stay upstairs? How do you book it? Is it an Airbnb? Like, what? I'm so confused. And also, how far is Lockhart from Nashville? Like, in this day and age, you're really not stuck in this small town. Like you could
I,
have, it's not that big of a state. I mean, I know I came from California and moved to Kentucky and we visited like Indiana, Ohio, Tennessee. Like we were so excited that we could be in another state in such a short period of time. Like you're still in the same state as
I
your
know.
girlfriend.
I know. I was thinking that I'm like, when was it? Like, when was the last time I was stranded even because of my car? Now with just like modern day transportation, even I can get an Uber up at the cottage. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, it's really rare to be stranded. Um, but I love that they tried because again, like if
It,
he wasn't stranded, what would have happened?
again, this is with a plot hole. There's
Yeah,
not much plot. It's so many holes. You just pull out one thing and like the whole movie falls apart. So yes, but still love the movie. Are we done poking holes in it?
totally.
Okay.
Totally. We have to keep it a little bit together. It was cute, it was wholesome. Loved the songs.
But you see how this is like your typical, like without the songs and without their chemistry, it would have been
There's
like,
nothing.
exactly. But it just goes to show you like these actors and actresses have to be so talented to carry the script.
Yes.
Like it's actually harder, which I
Yeah.
didn't appreciate that until I started watching more and listening to their interviews. Okay. Our last segment is the Jiao, which is Mandarin for like encouragement, like keep going. And they say fighting because this is where we're cheering for the happily ever afters. What we think
Mm-hmm.
happens, who we're rooting for. I love the movie so much. I actually don't care too much. But what did you think?
Okay, this is what I think should happen. I think Luke should move, and do a reality show about
Oh,
Tuckers.
ooh,
Somehow, because he has no movie career because he's
he
screwed
blew it.
that up. He blew it. He lost his contacts. He went back on his agreement. So he's not going to be a movie director, but he was already an award-winning television director. And like I'm a reality TV lover. So like I would probably watch it. So that's him and Callie stay together. Tucker's become successful because somehow there's this like amazing reality TV show that he does.
Oh,
That's my happily
that's
ever after.
good. I didn't even think about that. Mine is Willa and Dan have some sort of successful franchise
Oh
because
yes, yeah.
so this family kind of becomes like, you know, coastal and Midwest. Like they all can go back and forth between California and Tennessee. Because I also have that Callie and Luke date for a while, but Luke actually takes a sabbatical and moves to Tennessee part time. But then he gets
mm,
restless
mm.
um, because he's been so busy in his life, he doesn't know who he is. So then Callie considers going back to her musical career, and they make a movie together, a feature film
Oh,
where she sings in it, where life mimics art and art mimics life. And the movie flops. It goes nowhere. And in the process, they find themselves, but they decide to go their separate ways.
Oh my gosh.
It was fun. They learned. They moved on. That's their happily ever after with other people. The end.
I actually really like them together.
They are so cute together. I just feel like because he met her, okay. I really don't like the Hallmark scripts, and it happens a lot where it's like, you guys, this is like the relationships are low-key overlapping. And both of them were low-key overlapping. Jillian and Luke and Callie and Joe. Like, I mean, Callie and Joe weren't together, but like Luke was encouraging them to get together. So it's just like a weird, like, I'm encouraging you to get back with your ex, and the next day
in my mind, I'm trying to like take my own plot and thread it through the wafer thin plot that they have. But in my mind, I was thinking that he would probably doing that so that he wouldn't have the temptation to like
so
Callie
cute.
anymore.
Yeah.
He was trying to put up that boundary because without it, he feels like he's gonna cross it. This is a reach, but
I'll give him. I can totally see that. I'll give him that.
What are your final thoughts and favorite quote? And this is a great movie to quote because they just handed us quotes on a silver platter.
Left and right. I have so many. Country music is 3 chords and the truth. Success can be your servant or your master. But my favorite is when Sully says, "You may be a lot smarter than you look, son," talking about Luke. And Luke says to Callie, "I don't know if I just got a pat on the back or a punch in the nose." You guys, I felt so seen because when I first moved to the South and they said, "Bless your heart," that's exactly. I don't know if I just got a pat on the back or a punch in the nose, and nobody ever like told me that. I was like, that's exactly how it feels. And my favorite quote, which you guys are going to hear me reference and use from now on: "Sometimes you got to risk it to get the biscuit."
I love that line, and I laughed so hard. My favorite quote was from Callie, and it's when she said, "The difference between ballast and baggage, one keeps you grounded and one holds you back." I thought that was really great. But my final thoughts is, even despite the plot being relatively thin, it really shows you that, good actors, good chemistry can cover a multitude of sin. Like, there were so many gaps, but I really felt they had real chemistry. Like, if you told me in real life they dated or they were, I would probably believe you because it felt real.
Yeah. Actually, no, that was Lauren Alaina's that was her debut movie. Like, she's never done a movie. And I think Tyler Hynes carried it.
Yeah, definitely.
He did a fantastic job, and I love it. But again, like, it gives you, even though the fall feels were like, oh, that's rough, but it still gives you some fall feels.
Definitely.
It's the music. The music made it fall feels for me.
I agree.
Because fall in the South, to me, is where I discovered the wondrous, magical feels of fall.
Well, I love it, and I'm excited for more. This is the end of our episode. We hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you for breaking script with us. Don't forget to follow us so you never miss an episode, and we'll see you again next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, team.